right, so welcome to unEditing. I'm Michael Lautman, and I am very happy today to have Neal Caminsky with me today. Neal is the founder and owner of Red Dream Studios, and really, though, the reason that I asked him to come on the show is because he got his start in video editing, his sort of creative start from a young age, and so I was really interested to talk to Neal about his history and how all of that has informed his life and his career. So we're going to start from there. Neal, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming. And let's just get into it. Why don't you tell me how you got to start let's start with video editing anyway. How did you get into that world? I'm always curious about how that happens for people.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's extremely rare that actually somebody talks to me about video editing. So this is kind of it's a unique experience, but it's a thrill because I don't get to talk about this side of my, I guess, career very often. So I'm appreciative to be on your podcast with you.
I will say just that's actually a theme so you're, I guess, the fourth interview that I've done, and I guess the show isn't up yet, but by the time other people see it, it will be, which is going to be shortly. We're July 2nd now. But the constant theme I get when I talk to people about being on the show or other video editors is that, in fact, people don't really talk about it. So I'm glad you were willing to. So go ahead.
Yeah. So so my interest and I guess fascination with the visual medium started, as you mentioned, pretty young, even maybe in my very early teens.
Okay.
My father was very into photography. I think that kind of sparked the interest in capturing things on camera and on film. And I even remember as a child, even before I even had my own equipment, I would kind of like make fake commercials in my head for various objects. So if I was, let's say, sitting on the sidelines playing tennis or waiting to play tennis, for example, I would take my racket in my hand and I would just visualize panning around the thing, trying to like make a fake commercial in my head about a tennis racket.
Okay, so I just cut you off, but you were saying that your father was really interested in photography.
Yeah,
and then...
that's right. So I kind of, again, my earliest memories of this was kind of making fake commercials in my head of various inanimate objects and just visualizing panning around and making movies in my head. And I remember I also had a passion of dying to be the cameraman at a Habs game. So I would have loved to have been, I didn't care about watching the game itself. I wanted to film it. I loved how, they were capturing the action and so forth. And eventually my father graciously decided, you know what, let me buy him a video camera. I was maybe 11 or 12 when I had my first personal camcorder. And it was very rare because nobody my age had that kind of equipment.
That's the thing is like, I've talked to younger editors and stuff like that and kids who have come up, in people in their 20s, and the accessibility it was just there, they had, iPhones were around by the time they were 10 years old or whatever. But like, I remember in the 80s and 90s, a camcorder at home was a big deal.
Yeah. I mean, so I'm 50 now. So we're talking early 80s, mid 80s when I had actual. And so because it was, digital tape, it was so easy to futz around with and just, you didn't have to worry about film.
Right.
And the cost of it. So I could literally do anything. And the added benefit was my father was actually very into computers.
Okay.
He would even build computer kits back then and so forth. So he was very much into investing into the latest tech, which for me was fantastic as a kid.
Yeah.
So we had a very early 286 Intel machine with 4-color graphics.
Yeah.
I was like blown away.
Yeah. Crazy.
And so with that, I was able to use the rudimentary paint programs to actually create credits and titles. And I even at some point created a very simple animated logo for myself.
Wow.
which was just called NEC Pictures.
Mm.
Right? So I created my own little movie company, and somehow animated just the text flying on
Yeah.
the screen. So all this was just really blowing my. And even the movie Tron, when that came out in 1982, that had a serious impact on my career. In that, I was seeing CG graphics for the first time on
Yeah.
screen, and it completely blew my mind and really said, I got to get into this.
Mm.
And so that kind of all of this kind of sparked my creative aspect of my
That's
career.
fascinating.
Yeah, and so it really started early on, and so because I had this camcorder, I started bringing it to school in high school, and I started, just filming day-to-day things that were happening in school. So if there was an event happening, I would film it, just really for my own purposes.
Yeah.
But eventually, the intention was to kind of show it to my friends in class, maybe at the end of the year and so forth. And grade 11, when for my graduating year, I filmed kind of a day in the life of my school,
Okay.
which wasn't really a day. It was kind of like
Yeah.
several days and several events going on. And I kind of got, into the idea, okay, so I have all this footage, but what am I going to do with it? I'm not going to have them sit down and watch this for an hour. So I figured, how am I going to cut this down so that it's a little bit more manageable and interesting? So again, because we had the latest tech, we had several VCRs in our house.
Oh, now you're going old school. Several VCRs.
That's right. Not just one. We had several. We had about 2 or 3 different ones.
Mm.
So what I figured out how to do was to take the RCA cables out of my camcorder and put that into the VCR, but also mix in audio from a ghetto blaster using the left channel was coming from the camcorder, the right channel was coming from the ghetto blaster, and so you'd have the 3 inputs, and I'd be able to mix all this together. So using very now this is all antiquated stuff, but back then, if I was able to create a video,
well, that's pretty sophisticated for someone at home in the 90s or whatever.
That's right. Well, so I'd stop and start the VCR when I wanted to make a cut, and I'd record video coming in from the camcorder, and I'd mix in the let's say a soundtrack from I'm not sure if I had CDs even at that point. I think it was still even cassette tapes with music on there, or just even the radio was coming in, and I'd make this a half-hour production that I showed at the end of we showed it during our prom.
Okay.
And people were just blown away.
Yeah.
And they were crying when they were supposed to. They were laughing when they were supposed to. And this whole reaction that I got was really what made it all worthwhile. And that's kind of created the seeds of my love for editing footage and making these productions.
That's so cool. I know there's other people. I'm just a bit younger than you. I'm almost 48, but it's kind of the same experience where, if you had wanted to, make even just an audio playlist, I sat with, the radio and a tape deck, or my CD player and 2 tape decks. So, and then the idea even of creating stuff that it's so accessible and anybody can do it for basically nothing. Now, you had to put a lot of time and energy into creating these, and it made me think of the movie, and it's not a fair comparison to you, but just because of the character, I think it's American Dream with Kevin Spacey, and he plays kind of a pervy. Is it Kevin Spacey? Pervy dad in it, but there's a character in the film, because the movie takes place in 1998 or 99, who's walking around with a camcorder in high school.
American Beauty.
American Beauty, that's it. And he's again, it's not a fair comparison because he's not like a great person, that kid. Either is Kevin Spacey, I guess. But just that idea of somebody in the 90s walking around filming was weird enough to be the point of that character almost. And and absolutely, I remember being obsessed with my dad had like done photography, and then we didn't really, and so we didn't have a lot of that stuff. And I remember being obsessed with my friends who had camcorders, because just the idea of it and the accessibility was just not there. And so, yeah, I think it's really interesting to compare. My kids, for example, like they send each other video messages all the time, right? They'll do it in Snapchat and they'll put little effects on it or whatever, which is they're basically creating little movies all the time without even thinking about it.
It's just second nature. I mean, an entire studio is now here, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy, and it's almost sad in a way that they don't get to experience what people like you and I did in the infancy of this, because there was something so much more gratifying in being able to use your hands in a much more, and your I guess your not the intellect, but the way you had to improvise in order to get to where you wanted to go by using stone knives and bear skins, like Dr. used to say on Star Trek. But to use these simple tools that are just starting out in order to create something bigger.
Absolutely. I think it gives you sort of almost, I guess, like kind of a tactile, but like a more fundamental level of understanding of how things work, even. Right? There's just the idea of, I've got to get a video signal from here to here and an audio signal from here to here, and what happens to it in between, and how to just that kind of level. And then when you are working in a sense in a high stakes environment, which is that it's very labor intensive, you do learn to be more thoughtful in a sense in terms of what you do. And I mean, I'm not knocking the modern technology and some of the things that it's made so accessible, but it's just interesting that I think it gives people a different sense of perspective in how things work.
I mean, today things are just so much easier to do. But there's no comparison to it. But I don't think you necessarily get the same level of gratification that you did, let's say, 10, 15 years ago. It's just so much easier to do things now.
You're right.
I could be thinking old school. I mean, I'm thinking.
So that's because I have the same kind of feeling, and I don't know if it's true. It's hard to judge what other people think. Like I remember, because now you've transitioned at Red Dream. You guys do not only video production, but a lot of your work is in graphic and web design.
That's right.
And before I started editing video about 5 years ago, I kind of have always been interested in web design and digital marketing stuff, since the 90s. And I remember when, I guess it was in the late 96, 97, maybe, when I got first introduced to, I guess, Netscape Navigator. And I built my first website on Angel Fire. And I had to like code the whole thing by hand. It was ugly, but the style sheet the styles were all built into the HTML at the but just I remember the satisfaction of thinking of it as a creative endeavor to code out or to and the coders can argue about whether or not HTML is coding. We'll leave that. But to write out basically text and see it become a website. And now, with the visual website building tools that are so powerful, you can do so many things. But at the same time, maybe it's just old guy nostalgia of being like,
yeah. So my video career continued. Because basically, I started having a large enough portfolio, and I started to actually start doing some, I guess, quote unquote commercial things.
Okay,
I actually get paid for the stuff that I was doing. Again, I'd be filming, let's say, basketball tournaments, or I started getting into event videography. because I had the equipment and I had
Yeah.
luckily I knew people who, let's say, needed something. They didn't care if it was sort of cheapish looking,
Right.
but they were still happy to get it done. So let's say for $450, I would shoot a bat mitzvah,
Right.
or maybe a little bit more. I was doing a wedding or something like
Yeah.
that. So that eventually gave me a strong enough portfolio that I got hired. My first job, straight, while I was still in university, at Matrox.
Okay.
So Matrox was developing, or they wanted to develop, a nonlinear editing card that would go into a computer.
Okay.
And they were competing against Pinnacle, which was, I think, one of the first guys to do it. So this was all novel stuff.
Yeah.
You'd be able to take still analog video, but transfer it to your computer. And I actually had a Pinnacle product just before I got hired. Because again, my father decided, he's really getting into editing, and let's see what we can do. And I kind of did the research, and I think in a computer gaming magazine that I had, there was an advertisement for a Pinnacle product. And I said, Dad, it was like $1,000 at the time, which was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But luckily, he invested in that, and it was a tremendous effort to get it installed, and half the time it would crash and wouldn't work. And you'd hit export, and you'd pray that whatever your timeline had would actually
get into the file.
Yeah, exactly, because you never knew. I mean, the drivers were constantly flaky and breaking, and I'd have to pray to find an update, and even to just download an update. You're doing it by modem.
Yeah.
So it would take forever to do these things. And so, my portfolio was large enough that Matrox hired me they called me an evangelist.
Okay.
Because I had experience with a competitor product and I had experience doing my own productions. I said, you know what, maybe we can exploit his experience and help develop our own product. And about a year and a half later, the first product that came out was called the Rainbow Runner. And it was actually a very successful product for Matrox. And they got into video editing, especially on the consumer level, pretty early. We're talking, it was just before 2000, something like that.
Okay, yeah.
So it was a very fun time for me, for sure, because not only did I get to play and video edit for myself, but I was getting paid for it on, my 9-to-5 job.
Yeah. That's perfect.
It really helped hone my skills. Not only that, but at some point they started asking me, can you build us an intranet site? Like not an external website.
Okay, just an internal, yeah.
Yeah, but they needed an internal website to start, talking about the features and just publicizing what was going on inside Matrox and so forth. And I had no clue how to create a website at the time. So they slapped a manual about that thick on my desk. It was for a program called Hot Metal Pro, if I'm not mistaken, to be exact. It said, take this and see what you can do. And I was an avid nerd and an avid reader of manuals. So to me, this was like, okay, this is fun. I'm getting paid for this. And I'd read through the whole book and I'd highlight whatever was salient enough to remember. Lo and behold, a few months later, I built a crude internet site. And eventually, colleagues of mine who were also starting maybe their own little businesses, they came up to me, a few years after that. And they said, Neal, I kind of want my own business. Can you help me build a website? I said, okay, sure.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to say, no, I have no idea how to do this. I just said, for sure, I'll do this. And I got paid, and that was fantastic. So, while I was at Matrox, first I was learning the skills, how to do things that I really love doing, and getting paid for it, quote unquote, twice, because, I was freelancing after hours too. And I started building up a portfolio of various things. So not only was I doing websites, I was doing video editing and so forth. And, I had the skills of doing graphic design work. And at that time, programs like Photoshop were really becoming very accessible.
Yeah.
And we had them on the job because part of what Matrox did was uh, we needed to have access to all these applications.
Right. If you're going to try out your hardware.
Absolutely. And we became partners with Adobe.
Okay.
So I was constantly getting new versions of Adobe Premiere in my hands.
Okay.
And it was awesome because I had access to all these tools. And so I was playing with them constantly, day in, day out, as part of my job. So I really became quite proficient in all things Adobe. And it was a real thrill.
That's incredible. So when did you decide to go out on your own?
So I decided so the salaries at the time were not the best at Matrox. And I was getting married around the time. And I decided, you know what, I was actually making almost as much freelancing as I was salaried.
Yeah.
So in 2001, I discussed it with my father, and I said, you know what, I would love to create my own company officially.
Mm-hmm.
And he took me to now you can do it online, but he took me to Place Bonaventure, and I think they had a Regie office there. I distinctly remember him being with me and filing out the paperwork together, submitting the $30 and saying, you are now an official registered company. So this was February 2001. And, now we're talking 24 years later, and I'm still fortunate to still be running this company.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that was the impetus. Just realizing, you know what, I'm having much more fun doing this on my own, and I think I can make a career out of this. And luckily enough, for 7 or 8 years after that, I was running this as an entrepreneurship, or as a solopreneurship, whatever you want to call it, solo proprietorship. And it was doing very well. And each year, I was exceeding my previous intake.
Okay.
So that was a sign of success.
Yeah.
Not only obviously monetary reasons aside, but I really enjoyed doing it. So it really wasn't work for me.
Right.
And eventually I somehow connected with a woman who was doing these A&E style biography videos.
Okay.
These were legacy videos. So basically a very rich family who wanted to discuss how they became healthy and how their business became profitable.
Yeah.
And they wanted to create these videos and leave them for their children.
Okay.
To discuss, basically, this is my life story. So it's really just a family oriented video.
Yeah.
Not meant for wide distribution.
Kind of like a private film, like a private history of the family.
That's right. So I managed to connect with her, and I was creating long form 90-minute productions.
Okay.
And it took all of my skills to create these things, and they were actually fascinating, because now I was taking all these digital tools I had and doing a lot of Ken Burn style effects, photos, scanning archival documents and photos, and I was doing all this kind of work for her. And obviously, because they were family oriented, we had to make them impactful, and they had to be entertaining. We had to get people to cry at the same time. So I was taking my library of soundtrack music and throwing in Star Trek music and all kinds of stuff like that into these videos to make people really interested. So that kept me going for quite a while, until the market crashed. I think it was 2008. The industry was just terrible.
Okay.
And for a while there, for about a year and a half, I went back to a 9-to-5 job, and at that point, things started getting better. About a year and a half or 2 years later, and the call came back. People started asking me again.
Okay.
Can you freelance and do more stuff for me? I quit again.
Right.
And I went back to doing my own thing, 9 to 5, and I was still pumping out videos and websites and stuff like that. And that's kind of where I eventually ended up today.
That's It's so funny. There so many people in the industry that I talk to have similar experiences, even where it's really the freelance work that takes them, or the confidence to either just keep doing it, or even in your case, not to just really be able to step away. We were talking a bit before the show, and you were saying, well, you and I don't know each other, and we haven't really had a chance to talk. My story is certainly different. My introduction to the digital creative world really came, as I said, with the arrival of the visual web. So I was always really a science nerd. I studied chemistry in university, went to graduate school, but from the time I guess I was in undergraduate in the mid to late 90s, where I started being interested in web development, what happened is, in a sense, similar, which is that while I was in, I guess, finishing undergrad and working in research labs, the idea that academics might want to have a website, just to like have a summary of their research and list their recent publications so that they could point, someone could go to their website, someone they met at a conference or whatever. And because I had played around with learning HTML and I guess probably Photoshop at the time also, I got hired by my undergraduate research supervisor at Concordia to build a website. And then when I moved on to graduate school at Université de Montréal, also my supervisor and then a couple other faculty asked me to build websites for them. And for me, that was great because graduate school, super fun. Loved, being able to just live in kind of this purely intellectual world, but not great for the pocketbook. So that was for me. And then when I finished graduate school, I started teaching at John Abbott. I teach chemistry. I still teach chemistry at John Abbott, but it was always that launch into having something else that was this, not only a financial support, but also creative outlet. I did a lot of freelance web development, which led me into SEO and pay-per-click advertising for a while. And again, over, through the 2000s, there's definitely ups and downs with that. And then for me, actually, video editing came only recently. And it became kind of because I like learning new things and because of COVID. And what ultimately happened is my wife works for the Cree Board of Health and Social Services of James Bay. So in James Bay, she works here in Montreal, but her and her team are a regional team who travel up to the Cree communities in James Bay to provide support for people with disabilities or people working with people with disabilities. And when COVID hit, they couldn't travel anymore. And my wife had the idea, well, let's do a podcast. And I was like, well, I've messed around in Audition, no, not even Audition at the time, Audacity.
Audacity.
Yeah, like the free audio editor. And then I was like, well, I bet I could, you're recording these things on Zoom. I bet I could do you a video one also, not, I think, really ever having edited a video, to be honest. And that was my introduction to it. And so my career as an editor has been mostly in either conversational style video or training videos, presentation style, talking head style videos. But again, the idea for me of having this, it's a job, but it's certainly, even when it's not something that necessarily is going to have a super strong emotional impact, but it's still for me, it's a creative outlet. I find it fascinating, and the tools, you know, are so powerful now. That, you know, the quality of things that you can produce with a phone and a laptop is incredible. So
Yeah, absolutely. Look, humans by nature are creative people.
mm,
I think that's what sets us apart from the animals.
yeah,
Is that we have an innate desire to create something, right? So
yeah,
whatever outlet fulfills that need for you,
yeah.
it's amazing. And it's, very often we fall into things that we don't expect to. So you came into video editing kind of haphazardly,
Yeah, in a
almost
sense.
as a necessity.
Yeah, trying to just help out and being a curious person, and being a kind of a creative person, but really out of, oh, you know, this would be, I'm solving a problem basically for somebody.
Yeah, for me, it was the experience of touching other people.
Mm,
Was really the most gratifying. So when I got
100%.
again, when I was creating more, I guess, creative videos,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing people's reactions
Yeah.
to the something that I put together or something
Mm-hmm.
I created, that was extremely fulfilling.
Yeah.
And I can see why directors and actors love doing what they do,
Yeah.
because they're ultimately affecting other people's emotions,
Yeah.
or
And that's a
even
great
or even
feeling.
or even comedians.
Yeah.
If I can make you laugh, it's like
Yeah.
it's fulfilling for you as a
Absolutely. Yeah.
person
Yeah.
to be able to affect somebody else. So that's what was really the most gratifying
Yeah.
aspect of this for me.
Are you doing a lot of editing video production these days, or is Red Dream really more on
Yeah,
the
and unfortunately, I'm doing less these
okay.
days, not because of lack of interest. It's just I've also now become partners with other video editing companies.
Okay.
So largely, I'm not producing anymore because
Mm,
I stopped investing in the equipment.
right.
Nothing I have compares to what, let's say, a video production studio
Of
would
course.
have. And often, usually what happens is, well, okay, if I'm outsourcing the video production aspect, I'll just give them the whole thing, and then they'll
Right.
just
If they're
produce
going to do the videography or cinematography and then the whole, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Something I'm always curious about, um, away from just the business side, which is more on the personal side, is because you talked about, before, you know, having always wanting to be the cameraman, at a Habs game, but do you think that your involvement, you know, being so hands-on and being so involved with, you know, creating movies or editing video for people has had an impact on how you think about the media that you consume? Like, are you like a big movie and TV guy? And do you, like, is that
yeah,
something that's kind of in how you think about things?
yeah. So unfortunately, it has spoiled it in that, like most nerds, and I'm a proud nerd. I'm not. This is not, whoever's watching this. I'm not insulting nerdship
No, no, don't worry.
by any means. I'm very proud of it. Um, I'll watch a movie, especially if it's a special effects laden movie, and I'll
Mm,
try to analyze how it's done. Right?
right.
I'm not sitting there enjoying what I'm seeing necessarily all the time. I'm trying to analyze what's going on, and I'll see, oh, I like that shot, or I like this shot, and stuff like that. So, yeah, I'll pick apart a movie because, I did have aspirations of actually being a filmmaker. Also, I did apply to Concordia Animation School.
Oh,
Just, I thought I had a large enough portfolio, both on tape, but as
hmm,
well as on paper, because I was doing
mm,
a lot of drawing
okay.
as well. So, I had a huge portfolio of stuff that I would sketch out,
Yeah.
because I was even taking drawing classes in CJEP and so forth. Um, but the animation school, and why did I choose animation again? Because my fascination with Tron and stuff like that. I really wanted
Yeah.
to, and I've got a huge fan of Pixar.
Mm.
So I really wanted to get into the animation aspect because I figured, I could really create anything I wanted out of nothing,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
opposed to filming with an actual camera.
Yeah. Hmm.
But it was notoriously hard to get into, and I think they only accepted maybe 40 students or even
Okay.
20 students. So I did get that rejection letter, and instead of going into that, I moved into computer science at McGill.
Hmm.
Uh, so that's the path I ended up taking. Now, first I forget the original question.
Well, it was about watching,
Oh, yes.
consuming, watching movies or TV. It's funny that you say it spoiled it. I find for me what's happened, and again, maybe it's because I came to it later. I found that I do kind of pick things apart, but what spoils it for me the most is when it's done poorly.
For sure.
Then it pulls me like a good show or a good movie. I might notice it, and then it may be on a rewatch where I really sort of try and pick it apart. But when it's done badly, it just pulls me, right out of whatever I'm watching. I noticed this especially with CG effects, and it
Yeah.
doesn't matter the budget of the movie. There's like, for example, like the Marvel movies, which are essentially, maybe aside from Avatar, the biggest of the big budget movies, those and Transformers and whatever. And sometimes it's the effects, like the way the characters are moving or something, are so bad that I wonder, like, did they hire a cartoonist literally to do this part? Not, and then I'm like, whoa, it's almost jarring.
The classic case study of that is Black Panther. So
That's the one I'm thinking of. Yes.
Yeah, the last third of the movie or a quarter of the movie was done, and they even talk about this in the behind the scenes that they were rushed and they were running out of budget and so forth. Surprisingly, they were running out of budget, but they were rushing this movie unbelievably. Yeah, you really notice how cheap and inauthentic the effects are, and it soured the entire movie.
Yeah, the characters like stretch in ridiculous ways.
Yeah, and the camera angles are just ridiculous. I mean, they're doing like 360 loops around a ledge and stuff like that. It's too over gamified.
Yes,
which is really what spoils the movie. So special effects are obviously the best when you don't notice them.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why a lot of filmmakers are now moving towards shooting for real as opposed to relying on CGI, and that makes the finished product so much more authentic.
I agree with you. It's interesting because some of the shows, like recently, I'm a huge fan of The Bear, and season 4 just came out, and I just watched an episode twice because it had such a huge emotional impact, and then I watched it again, and I was like, oh, the cinema choices of or setting up the shots, and there's the way they'll play with color and lighting, and then have the camera stay in certain spots and so I guess for me, I feel that I still get it's almost like I appreciate that bit of the art form so much, and it almost heightens the impact for me knowing how much thought somebody put into it. But it's kind of my extremes have changed, right? Whereas like the bad is much, much, much worse in terms of, as like, somebody could have done this better. Somebody decided to do this and it's terrible, versus on the other end, the appreciation of it.
Yeah, look, as a video editor, newer trends, for example, are in action movies these oneers. So these 10-minute shots that don't have a cut, or at least a noticeable cut.
Yeah.
So those are the kinds of things that I analyze.
Mm-hmm.
I've been recently watching the Daredevil series with my son, and we hear of an upcoming wonder, in one of these episodes, and so we wait for it and we watch it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like they've become so seamless
Yeah.
that you really appreciate not only the planning of the shot itself or the shots
Yeah.
by the production crew, but also the editing that went into creating these long sequence
Yeah.
of action sequences that that's really where you feel the movie is authentic. It doesn't seem fake. And so those are the types of things that personally I really appreciate watching.
I agree. It's so, and again, when it's done really well, you have to really, it sometimes even takes a minute when it's done well. It's not even obvious that it's a oneer unless somebody tells you sometimes, or you might realize while it's happening, unless you're looking for it. And then, when it's done seamlessly, the classic, of course, is like, was it 1917?
Yes.
That where it's like the whole movie is kind of shot like that.
Yeah.
And that it's exceptional, I mean, if you look for it, you can, even if you can't see it, you could tell where they did it.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Sometimes you don't realize you're about to see a oneer until you're about 2 minutes into it. And
Yeah.
Has there been a cut here? Like,
yeah,
that kind of thing. And then you start really appreciating the fact that, this is going to be a 10-minute action sequence. And it's amazing.
I love that on so many levels because it's a, I guess is it like sort of the reverse was like with the Bourne movies maybe, and like the first of them where there's like, so much cutting.
Yeah, I was just
in
thinking.
a fight scene, and that when that came out, it was jarring and exciting. But I remember even thinking about this when just like in terms of thinking about cameras and cutting, like on a wider scale. Like I remember, I gave a presentation to a bunch of my colleagues as an educator about like, why if you're standing writing with your back to a class on a chalkboard at the time or using an overhead and just writing stuff out, the kids who are now, say by 2006 in CEGEP, you lost them. And I remember showing my colleagues in this presentation a clip from like The Wiggles or some other show that these kids were growing up on versus the Sesame Street that we grew up on, where, in the 70s and 80s, Sesame Street would the camera would sit for 3 minutes sometimes on a thing that was happening. But in The Wiggles, it's like constant. I was like, so for me, sometimes these oneers are a kind of a return to holding what's going on. It's not Casablanca where the camera doesn't move, which is fine, but it's a bit of an antidote to the constant change of your frame of reference, and I really like it.
Yeah, well, there was definitely a movement where people thought about retaining people's attention spans, right? So the classic way of doing that is by changing the shot and making people see something different.
Yeah.
Otherwise it was perceived as being boring. I was just thinking of the same thing when you mentioned the Bourne movies. Is that for me? I think one of the first movies I remember seeing where the cutting was actually a distraction was Terminator 2. And there's certain action sequences there that there's literally a cut every 3 seconds or less, and it becomes a little jarring. And it's like you can't necessarily appreciate what you're seeing because as soon as you see something, it's already gone. So, but that's I guess what James Cameron decided to do, especially during the fast action sequences.
Yeah.
And maybe it was also part necessity because if you focus too long on the antagonist of the film, which was he is liquid metal, you can't sit on him too long, otherwise you're going to see the gimmick.
Yeah,
you're going to see the effects. Whereas
especially from a movie made at that time.
Yeah, whereas now I think it would be a lot easier to see.
100%.
It would be much more realistic looking.
Yeah. I guess. It's funny though because at the same time, and this I'm jumping forward, and you're talking about the new Daredevil, but even the first Daredevil series also had some longer sequences that were really well done. And then switched to from there to Iron Fist, and where they had to use the cutting to hide the fact that the actor who played Danny Rand had, I don't know if you saw the series, it wasn't very good, but he didn't have time. He didn't have time to prepare, so he couldn't fight. So you have this guy playing Iron Fist, right? Who's supposed to be, if you're a comics nerd, he's the greatest martial artist basically in the world ever, but the actor playing him can't fight. So they had to use, and I remember I was incredibly let down by that series. I want to switch gears a bit and talk, because this is something I'm trying to get a lot of a feel for, which is, like sorting out the what's real and the what's hype, because this touches all of the digital world, from video production to web design to everything, which is generative AI. Sure. And like, where are you seeing its impact on business? Are you seeing its impact in business? Do you think it's just a distraction? Like, I just want to know sort of your hot take.
Yeah. So obviously it's crazy to think we're talking about an AI revolution here. And just, you wouldn't be able to think of these things, 10, 15 years ago. Like, it's way beyond anything you could have imagined. But AI, from my perspective, is a tool. Whether or not it's impacted business, well, so my wife is actually a very talented voice artist.
Okay.
And so, unfortunately, I think it is starting to impact the amount of work that she's getting, because even her agents are saying we might be starting to lose contracts because it's so easy to just
generate a voice.
Yeah, to generate any voice, not even replicating somebody else's voice. Let's say, faking Morgan Freeman or something.
Yeah,
to voice your commercial, but just creating any voice that sounds pleasing enough. You can start now creating subtle nuances in the speech patterns that it's almost indistinguishable now between an actual.
Absolutely, yeah. I've seen examples of. So I've used tools like where to generate, to recreate someone's voice in, say, a project where I have a recording and somebody flubbed like a line, and it's kind of a lot of trouble to get back to record with that person. For now, I've gotten permission, but then I clone their voice and have the voice say, and it's incredible. And I've seen, I don't remember which tool it is, but it's one that, like, if you put in square brackets, I think, like a cough or screaming or whatever, it will then add those things. It will then add those things into the intonation or the spoken word, and it's wild. So yeah, I never thought of it in terms of voice acting, but you're right. I think that seems like one of the ones that's gonna be hit hard.
Yeah. So unfortunately, we think that career might have a huge impact, certainly within the next couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of what I do, it's so easy now, for example, to create even fake product ads using AI. So you just show a picture of some widget, and you can actually create an Instagram post.
Yeah,
that is completely artificially generated about that product.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's pros and cons to AI. I mean, as a tool, it has been simplifying my, I wouldn't say day-to-day work, but it has certainly allowed me to create additions to, let's say, a website. For example, a plugin in WordPress.
Yeah.
That either is only commercially available, so to save my client, let's say, a couple $100 a year, I can recreate that plugin with my own
Yeah.
slant on it using Grok.
Right.
And it not only has saved the client money, but it has saved me time
Hmm.
in that I don't have to program something from
Yeah.
nothing. I can just
Yeah.
have AI do it for me.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of examples of that where it has saved me hours and hours of work, sometimes on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
So it's if you know how to use these tools, they can become extremely beneficial to you as opposed to taking away
Hmm.
work.
Yeah.
Because those hours that I've saved, I can now go after other clients and do other jobs. Whereas,
Yeah.
if I'm busy doing one thing, I can't do something else.
Yeah, so I think I'm in kind of the same boat as you in a sense that like, all of the video editing software now have some generative AI. Photoshop has a bunch, Premiere has everything related to transcript. It has generative extend now for some video clips where it can extend your clip by a bunch of frames if you need. But one of the things, even Riverside, where we're recording now, will like generate little like sort of social media clips automatically from the recording. But it's interesting to me. I like to pay attention to like the video trends on things like TikTok. And I don't know if you've seen these ones. There's like someone who's been doing it in VEO3. This like the Yeti and
Yes.
Sasquatch, like, doing cocaine in the jungle and whatever. And those, they're pretty good for what they
Great.
are.
They're hysterical. I just
Yeah.
followed. There's somebody that's producing stormtrooper videos.
Yeah. They're
Like a V-
hilarious. Like, and
yeah,
the
do you know
quality
like the
is
stormtrooper?
incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's like better than anything that Lucasfilm could have created, and it's unbelievable. Uh, and yeah, I mean, so we're getting into this realm of people being able to create content
Mm-hmm.
that was not at all possible before. And so you're going to see this wide proliferation of content creators.
Yeah.
And there's a dichotomy to this. I mean, so you're going to have a lot of people that didn't create content before and somehow monetizing this.
Mm-hmm.
But you're also going to have maybe a subset of people who are going to appreciate the traditional filmmaking as well, maybe even more so.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, for people like us who want to keep doing video projects, just the ability to create something from nothing is a game changer.
I agree. I think it takes, I could see it, like you were saying with voice acting, having a big impact on things like animation studios, potentially,
Yeah,
because they're, I still think we're a ways away from, really human realistic scenes with, things that look naturally lit and natural facial expressions and intonations and all of those things. But from the animation side, if you had wanted to produce a Pixar style, movie, the bar for that is getting lower and lower and lower in a
yeah.
sense.
I mean, even Pixar's latest release, Elio, has been dramatically panned by how poor it is. It got horrible box office takes.
Yeah.
And so, I think largely it's because people are also becoming more attuned to the fact that unless this movie is like completely amazing, like
Mm-hmm.
both script wise as well as the production value of it, they're seeing so much now stuff online that is quote unquote better. It's like, why should I go to a theater
Yeah.
to waste an hour and a half of a movie that kind of sucks?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I love movies, but I think I don't go to the theater that much anymore. I really don't actually.
Well, COVID really killed the experience for a lot of
Yeah.
people. Like they became used to just watching it at home.
Yeah. And it's, again, I think it's hard for me to, like, I know I saw, what did I see I saw the Dune movies in the theater. But like, that's like my favorite couple of books of all time. So fair. Also, kind of called for it, and then Top Gun, also totally worth it in the theater, I think. But yeah, a lot of the time I'm just gonna stay home, I think.
It's going to be a
So
challenge for Hollywood and for filmmakers in general, especially I think that over the next 5 years or
yeah,
so. It's definitely going to be a challenge. There will be blockbusters. People are definitely going to want to go to the theater and see it on a massive screen. And it's a night out. It's a date night.
yeah,
Thing. For people around our age, we're getting lazier. So it's just it's going to be easier. Okay, I'll just wait for it to come on streaming. I'll watch it on Disney Plus in 3 months instead of going to the theater.
yeah. I agree with you on that one too. Listen, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. This has been really great. I really have enjoyed getting to know you and getting to talk to you. And so, if people want to know about Red Dream, where should they look?
They can absolutely go to my website, reddreamstudios.com. I'm on all the
Okay,
social media platforms. I'm on Instagram, on Facebook, tweet now and again. They just have to Google and they'll find me and what I do.
wonderful. Listen, thank you again so much. It's been really great, and hopefully, we'll get a chance to talk again soon.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you.